All right, well, it's 2 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Hearing Loss Association of America's OTC 101 Ask the Experts webinar series. I'm Melissa Cruz, and we're happy to have you join us to learn about over-the-counter hearing aids from manufacturers. Today's webinar is the third in our series. One more is coming up on June 5th, so we hope you'll register for that one too. First, we have a few housekeeping notes. To see the captions on this webinar, which is being live captioned, you'll need to click on the CC icon and click Show Subtitles. You can change the font size in the subtitle setting. You'll see that up at the top under Caption Settings. Please use the chat feature for technical issues only. Use the Q&A window to ask questions for our panel. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can in our discussion, and our discussion will be moderated by HLAA's Executive Director, Barbara Kelley. Our HLAA staff will be monitoring the Q&A channel and will be answering some of the questions within the chat as well. All of our webinars are recorded and will be made available on our website. If you've joined by computer, the presentation should be in side-by-side mode. The slides are on the left and the panelists are on the right in the gallery view. You can change the size of your side-by-side view by hovering between the two screens and moving the gray bar to adjust to your desired size. If you've joined by mobile device or phone, your view may be slightly different, and you may have to scroll between views to get to the desired one. Just a quick reminder that HLAA does not endorse specific products or services. We're just trying to get you as much information as possible to make good decisions about your hearing health. And now I'd like to introduce Barbara Kelley, HLAA's Executive Director, who will begin the OTC 101 webinar.
Thank you, Melissa. The Hearing Loss Association of America makes hearing health a priority, and it empowers people with hearing loss and those at risk of hearing loss. We provide reliable information and support to take action and live well with hearing loss. And we advocate on behalf of all 50 million people in the United States with any degree of hearing loss. HLAA offers a community of support, and everyone here is welcome to join. And if you're new to HLAA, we encourage you to be part of our hearing health movement and to learn to live well with hearing loss. Join a webinar, find out about our chapters, our Walk for Hearing, or convention, or our resources. Just please come along with us. You know, our hearing and how we relate to the world around us is so important, and hearing should be protected in noisy environments. It should be checked, and it should be treated if there's an issue. Waiting to treat a hearing loss until it gets worse should not be an option. And you've tuned in today, so we know that you're thinking about your hearing health, or you're thinking about someone else's hearing health. But many people don't realize that hearing is an important part of overall health and wellness. And there's really no such thing as a small hearing loss. If it gives you trouble, or your family tells you it's giving you trouble, it's an issue. Take a step. In 2022, the FDA opened a new category of over-the-counter hearing aids. This is in addition to the prescription aids that you can get through an audiologist or hearing aid specialist. Over-the-counter is just another pathway to care that gives some people choices. And there's no one fits all to hearing care. You could still see a hearing healthcare professional and get an OTC product. But an important fact about OTC hearing aids is that they are for adults only with perceived mild to moderate hearing loss. Whatever route you choose, we hope it leads to taking that first step sooner rather than later and placing your hearing health right up there with all your other important health concerns. There's been a lot of news coverage and talk about these new products, these over-the-counter hearing aids, but many of us are understandably confused and very curious. Our HLA survey shows that 68% of people who did not purchase an OTC hearing aid said they didn't have enough information, and that's why we're here today. For the third in a series of 4 webinars on OTC, which is supported by a grant from the CTA Foundation. And it's just to get information to the general public and help answer your questions. Now, not all the questions are going to be answered today, but and we're not going to provide assessments or ratings of specific products, but we're going to get a few perspectives from two companies that manufacture OTC hearing aids to give you some solid information to go on. And then in addition to this webinar series, we have our HLA's online resources on OTC hearing aids. We have a tip sheet, a shopping guide, article links, and of course, a survey that we hope you will take so we can get you the information that you need. We're very happy to have two panelists today from companies that make over-the-counter hearing aids. One is from EssilorLuxottica, I'm going to get that right, EssilorLuxottica, and the other one is from Sony. And these panelists are going to help answer your questions about OTC hearing aids. And I just want to thank you both for being here. First, we have John Luna, who has been in the international medical device and consumer electronic field for more than 30 years. He's the executive advisor for EssilorLuxottica Super Audio, and he's the chair of the OTC Hearing Aid Working Group with the Consumer Technology Association. John, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you, HLAA, for sponsoring this webinar. I look forward to participating, and I can answer questions as they come through.
Thank you, John. We also have Dr. Kati Davidson. She's an audiologist with Sony, and she's skilled in diagnosing and treating hearing loss in both adults and children. She also has experience with neurodiagnostics, vestibular disorders, and tinnitus. Thank you for being with us, Kati.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I want to really appreciative of having two manufacturers here. And I want to start with a few questions that were submitted ahead of time. And this will get the ball rolling. And then hopefully we can respond to some of the live questions that come from the Q&A window below. And I welcome either you, John or Kati, to take these questions, or both of you. The first question is, how can you tell if an over-the-counter hearing aid could help you? And what's a good first step?
That's a great question, Barbara. And I think, a good first step is knowing candidacy. Like you discussed before, it's for adults with perceived mild to moderate hearing loss and no medical contraindications. Knowing those medical contraindications is important. The FDA clearly spells those out, and they're labeled on every box as well. Pain, drainage, excess wax, sudden hearing loss, fluctuating hearing loss, tinnitus, dizziness, the list goes on. And so it's important to know when to see a physician to make sure your ears are medically healthy. And then also, what does it mean to have a perceived mild to moderate hearing loss? You might have trouble in noise or groups of people. Listening could make you tired. Maybe you're turning up the TV a little bit more than you're used to. And, one of the things that you can do is certainly you could see a hearing care professional, but that's not required for OTC. So it's never a bad idea to start with an online screener. Sony has one, and there are other ones out there as well. And we even have a video about this very question: are over-the-counter hearing aids right for you? And you can learn more on our website. You can schedule a one-on-one product consultation with our sales team. Our customer service team is there to help answer questions. But ultimately, I think an online screener is a really good place to start.
That's always a question people have, is how do they know? I mean, they know they're having a little trouble hearing on the phone or with background noise. John, can you add to that? And do you have a screener as well? And do you have anything more to say to that?
Well, no, I agree with Kati. I think that, the FDA the guidance was, and the intention is that somebody has a perceived loss. They have a difficulty in noisy environments. And I think, hard to follow speech when you're in a group conversation or with any presence of background noise. That's usually the first indicator that you've got a mild or moderate hearing loss. And, getting a screening or getting a full exam is something that's entirely up to the consumer, but it's not necessary. And I think, that everyone knows when they start having difficulty, like vision, when you start, things are blurry and you decide to do something about it, whether that's OTC or prescriptive. And I think with hearing aids, especially OTC hearing aids, the more times you have to ask people to repeat, and the more difficulty you have in background noise and the frustration level builds, you then know that you likely have something that's not a one-time event. And so it's that continuous problem that you have in background noise. People always say, I hear, but I don't understand. I know you're talking to me, but I can't hear it clearly. And that's usually an indication. And that's when you take the first step, whether that's a screener or whether that's trying a product that's available off the shelf.
That's very helpful. And, the idea of the over-the-counter hearing aids is when you go to an audiologist or a hearing aid specialist, you get that care. And some people need, if their hearing loss has progressed, maybe you need that extra care, you need that help. Katie, you mentioned that Sony has a helpline. That's a little bit of help that is offered to consumers. John, I'd like you to also speak to that. If EssilorLuxottica has a helpline, what kind of questions come through? What kind of help are they asking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have an excellent support team at Sony to help consumers along the way, and all sorts of questions come through, pre-purchase questions, post-purchase questions, and we support them via call, chat, or SMS with 2 tiers of service. So our first tier of service is our fantastic Sony sound agents, and they get a lot of questions like basic setup help, how to use the app, basic troubleshooting. If somebody gets their hearing aid clogged with wax, what do I do next? And so they can help with all of those questions. And we also have a second level of support with professionals like myself who can support more advanced OTC questions when and if that's needed. It's not telehealth. We're not providing specific medical recommendations about your hearing loss or your ears, but we're here to support with the product for the lifetime of the product. And so we get all sorts of questions, whether it's product specific or OTC specific. How do I know which product is right for me is a really common pre-purchase one that we get.
John?
Speaking for EssilorLuxottica and the Nuance audio glasses, our product is not available currently. It's not available in the US. And so when it becomes available, we'll have levels of support similar to others so that we can support consumers in the retail channel and after sale as well and pre-sale.
John, tell us about, you say your product is not yet available in the US. Where is it available? And when do you see, I was going to ask about the market, when do you see your product coming to market? Because that's what everybody wants to see, right? Is choices and what's happening.
I think one of the things that the FDA intended was innovation, right? And so, our product is in an eyeglass form factor. So it's stylish, it is open ear, open canal. And it is not available. It's not been launched anywhere in the world yet. And so we introduced it earlier this year. We announced it in 2023, where we're entering the medical device and med tech space. And EssilorLuxottica is known for its design, manufacture, and distribution of ophthalmic lenses, frames, and sunglasses globally. And so, entering the medical device and hearing space, not only to help people see better, but to hear better, is something that's behind this product. But it will launch, I can't exactly give you the exact date, but it will be launching in the future.
Well, thank you, John. I think that is what's exciting and everybody hoped for, is that we would see innovation in this space. And it's a really new market, right? And, people ask us all the time, how is the market going? Or how are sales? Is it where you expect them to be? Are the products effective? I mean, maybe you could talk generally about that because people are really curious. And now we hear there's a product that's not on the market, but people will look for that down the road. So how is the market? What do you see the market right now? Go ahead, John.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. You want Katie to go?
Either way, I'm fine. Either way. I'd share the OTC hearing aid committee for the Consumer Technology Association, and I'm on the board of industry leaders there. We have, insights and market information that's not public and not publicly shared because, all of the manufacturers and OTC manufacturers and distributors don't share their sales data. But in the market, there is plenty of inventory or product on retail shelves for consumers. I think, what we've done is created a pathway for access and affordability. And it's something that, really kicked off at the end of 2022. And now we're coming up on, the second year of it being available, but still retailers and consumers are aligning with each other to find the demand for the products that are now available that will become available. So there's lots of product in the market. There's lots of options for consumers. And that's in retail and online. And the price points now allow for affordability, and the accessibility is there. And consumers need to feel confident that these products, meet the standards and that meet the safety and effectiveness criteria that the FDA set out to make this, an option for consumers with perceived mild to moderate hearing loss. And I would encourage anybody that is not wearing hearing aids and has a perceived mild to moderate hearing loss or a confirmed mild to moderate hearing loss and hasn't done something about it to do something about their hearing and try one of these products.
Yeah, and to expand on that too, over-the-counter hearing aids have only been out for a year and a half, so it's really early in the OTC market. And consumers are aware of OTC, but they have so many questions, and they might be asking where to buy them, how to buy them, what is safe, what are the differences. As an audiologist, I can say the consumer journey to getting hearing aids hasn't been very well defined. A lot of people don't know even who or what an audiologist is, and people don't have access to one near their home if they live in a rural area. And so this is where we really see opportunity in the OTC market, and partnering with organizations like HLAA really help provide these resources on hearing health and OTC hearing aids. And it's so important, it's why we've started to develop more educational content. For example, our YouTube channel has videos to help people make those informed decisions and get better accustomed to their devices. And we continue to look for ways and outlets to reinforce education more broadly. I think just in the 19 months that I've been with the Sony OTC, our sales channels have increased tremendously. We've started with Best Buy and hearing care professionals, and then slowly added other retailers like Walmart, CVS, Amazon, and hearing-centric retailers like Here.com, and so many more. And which is great because it gives consumers more choices of where they can find options and resources to learn about these things. And as a new business, we've seen challenges and we've seen wins, but I think the goal remains the same, to provide that affordable hearing care so consumers can confidently treat their hearing loss.
This is just great points, and I have a couple of things I'd like to comment on. First of all, John, with the glasses. Now, we know that vision loss and hearing loss are different. Typically, you put on a pair of glasses and you correct your vision. And I can put on my glasses and I can see very well. You put in a hearing aid, we know it's not, so easily correctable. But I think what you're driving at is that you're combining two products that maybe reduce the stigma a little bit, because there's certainly no stigma in putting on a pair of glasses. But I think we still see some stigma about using amplification.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why people don't take that first step is, there is a stigma. There has been historically. I think products are smaller now. Our product is invisible when worn. So when you have an open ear and the sound being delivered through air conduction through the hearing aid portion, and so the stigma of invisibility or that stigma to have an invisible product is not a barrier that would be with our product. And even if you look at Sony's product, it's a smaller form factor. There are other products that are the standard hearing aid form factor that are a traditional hearing aid look and feel. And I think that sometimes keeps people from trying them, although there are certain hearing losses that must wear that type. So
right. And we're hoping with this new market, with more people taking that first step, using maybe some hearing enhancement from time to time, that more people are using things to create a better audio experience, and that reduces the stigma. Because certainly if you have a hearing loss, you don't want to not treat it. That's the worst thing you can do. Many people who have had hearing loss for years know that hearing loss can be very specific, and it needs some fine-tuning with an audiologist or a hearing healthcare provider. Speak to the over-the-counter hearing aid, and how specific do they get to a person's hearing loss, or is that necessary, or speak to that?
That's a great question. The Sony over-the-counter hearing aids are definitely adjustable. So Sony OTC are part of that class of self-fitting over-the-counter hearing aids. And so what a consumer would do is they download the Sony Hearing Control app on iOS or Android, and they take essentially a hearing screener. We call it the hearing profile check. And they're counting beeps in both ears at different frequencies, and then it's programmed based on those results. So a hearing profile is chosen for each ear to give them the best amplification possible. And then after that, they can get into the app and they can adjust volume, treble. The E10 has a special directionality section. That hearing aid has 2 microphones, meaning that it can be adjusted manually in the app to zoom in on speech and reduce noise. It has right and left slider bars to adjust for loudness in the menu. And there's an extensive fine-tuning menu too. So, for example, when people get new hearing aids, a lot of times everything is a little bit sharp or it's too tinny. That's a really common and normal thing to experience. But for some people, they need to take that down just a little bit just to get them used to the new sound. And so, they could go to fine tuning and select speech to sharp, and it'll give them anywhere from 1 to 6 solutions for that particular category. And there's more categories too that they can choose from to help them be successful and accommodate to their listening preferences. And so those fine-tuning options are abundant within the app, and it's important that people have those so they can get the sound quality. Everybody's hearing loss is different, and everybody's brain processes sound a little bit differently. So giving them the opportunity to adjust those features is so important.
So I'm hearing that the Sony product does have that. I would guess that maybe some of the OTC devices don't have that type of fine-tuning, or maybe some people don't need it. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm just trying to expand this topic.
That's a great question. It depends on the OTC device. There's a gamut of devices out there, and some will have more or less features available. Some are self-fitting through an app that have features that make them more adjustable. Some are not self-fitting. Some OTC devices just have buttons on the ear. So it's important to really search what features a device has and what your needs really are, what you're looking for in a device before you purchase.
I think you really, in this case, have to be an informed consumer. And that's where you need the resources to go and research these products. And this question we get a lot is, do any of the features on the OTC hearing aids work in conjunction with assistive listening systems like a telecoil or Bluetooth or large room assistive listening systems?
That's a great question. And OTC hearing aids can have many connectivity options. It just depends on the product and the individual listening needs. Think about Bluetooth. Some customers absolutely want Bluetooth, and other customers are totally overwhelmed by the thought of even using a Bluetooth. So, there's something for everyone, and it's really about what's important to the user. So, do you want Bluetooth? Do you want rechargeable batteries or pill batteries? Do you want it to look discreet, or do you not care how it looks? Sony has 2 styles. They have the CRE C10, which is the small virtually invisible CIC. It's really discreet. You don't see much of it, but because it's so small, it can't accommodate telecoil or Bluetooth in that little shell. And so, it has this size 10 pill battery that has 70 hours of use. You have to change it every several days. But that's another question to ask yourself. Can you change a battery? How is your dexterity? How is your vision? Can you physically manage the pill battery? Our E10, on the other hand, is more of an earbud style. It's a little bit bigger and easier to hold on to. And that form factor can accommodate Bluetooth, meaning it can stream music and calls to iOS devices. So for someone who wants streaming and has an iOS device, that's a great option for connectivity. It doesn't stream to Android. There's no telecoil, but it is rechargeable, and it has 26 hours on a single charge. So that could be important to someone too. You want to make sure you have a hearing aid that has a battery that can last all day if you're wearing it all day long. And so, those are just some features to really start thinking about when deciding what's right for you in an OTC hearing aid, because everyone's different. So it's really good to know what features you're looking at and what's important to you.
I'll add to that. I'm not aware, and I don't know, Katie, maybe you are, of any products in the OTC market that are available with a telecoil. Some of them do have the Bluetooth connectivity and streaming, and most of them have apps to customize or personalize the settings. But I'm not familiar with any of them that have a telecoil.
I'm not sure about that either. And, I think as technology progresses, you might see, things moving slowly more towards Oracast or other systems that are becoming more popular in technology as it moves and changes too. So, I haven't seen as much telecoil as well.
I think the FDA did not mandate these types of specifics, perhaps to leave room for innovation for the future. Would that be a correct statement, John?
Yeah, I agree with that.
John, tell me more about the work at the Consumer Technology Association on the OTC hearing aid working group that you're chairing. What kind of work are you doing? What can we look forward to? What's happening there?
Well, in the last couple of years, we've completed and we're able to come to a consensus on two standards. One of them was the updated OTC regulation on wearable sound amplifiers. So that's the ANSI 2051 2022 version, which is an update of the 2017 version that was referenced in the final OTC rule. And so I chaired that group and finalized that. And then we most recently worked with Franklin and Johns Hopkins and the CTA committee on the hearing number, which is a PTA for health wellness and hearing wellness standard that really allows somebody to monitor their hearing wellness over their lifetime, of course, for 18 and over. And it allows them to basically have one metric. Most people haven't had their hearing tested since they were in elementary school. So if you ask the average person when was the last time they had their hearing tested, most people haven't had it tested when they were 7, 8, 9 years old, maybe, unless they had ear infections or something as a child. And some people have it for, screening in pre and post military service, and other folks may have had their hearing tested at some point due to a health issue or something, but most people don't have a baseline. And so if you haven't gone to a hearing healthcare professional and you haven't gone to a physician and had a baseline, this allows you to understand what your hearing health is today and monitor it, as often as you'd like over the course of your lifetime. And then it also provides guidance with the hearing number to know when to seek professional help or when you might be a candidate for an OTC product and self-care. And also, how did you use general communication skills and some of the basics in hearing the best you can in difficult environments with or without amplification.
Right. And HLAA has representation on this working group as well, which
Yeah.
is really important for people to know that we do have a voice in there. And I think just on connectivity and, telecoils are important to many people who want to hear with hearing loops. And, we do look forward to Oracast, but I think a lot of people want to hear today and now, and connectivity is important. Then, maybe a prescription hearing aid, if you can't find the telecoil in and over the counter, a prescription hearing aid might be for you. And that's the beauty of this new category of over-the-counter hearing aids. It's not an either or situation. It's now just opening up consumer choice. It's opening pathways to care. We hope that it opens up innovation. Who knows what we're going to see in the future down the road. I mean, we never believed that we could hold our phones, our TVs, and our computers in the palm of our hands. So that, I think, is the beauty of opening up this new pathway to care, opening up a new market. And I think we're all excited about that. Let's see. I've been monitoring the questions in the chat, and I think that I'm hitting some of them. Somebody says, do OTC hearing aids come with different size shaped domes for comfort and adjustment? That, of course, is important. I've had people tell me they put an over-the-counter product, but it falls out of the rear. They want to use it, but it's falling out. So maybe you could speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 4 different sizes of click sleeves is what we call them. Essentially, that's what people are familiar with as a dome that will sit comfortably on the end of the product. And, they come with size small attached, but there's also extra small, medium, and large in their package. And that's really important because our ears are all different and all different sizes. And it's accommodating to fit those different ears. And some people even have a different size in different ears, just depending on their ear. So it's really important to have those different sizes because the OTC hearing aids aren't like a custom prescription product. So they're not molded to the size and shape of your ear. So, one size sometimes doesn't fit all, and sometimes you do need a custom product from a hearing care professional who can fit that a little bit more appropriately to a distinct ear canal. But for the most part, having those different sizes is really important for comfort.
I talk to so many people who, come to us for information, and they know that they are at the beginning of having signs of hearing loss. It's becoming harder at work in meetings, but they aren't ready to take that first step to a prescription hearing aid, wearing hearing aids 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I've said, Barbara, I just need some hearing enhancement from time to time. And this is where I think the over-the-counter hearing aid market might fill a need in the market for somebody who needs some clarity of sound, needs some hearing enhancement from time to time in some situational hearing. Could you speak to that, either of you, John or Katie?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
agree with you. Oh, go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, that's up to the consumer and the situations that they're in. I mean, I wear glasses, right? Not all the time. And so when I need to read something small or in low light, I wear my glasses. And they definitely help and take me back to 2020, but I can see at distance and I don't need them all the time. In other situations, people do need to wear them all the time. And so it just depends on the hearing loss and then that person's lifestyle. And it goes to the hearing loss and then their ability to hear in different environments and the product that they feel comfortable wearing comfortably and hear well with and have then adjustments in those different environments. And so, some control with an app or directionality. Ours also has directionality. And so if you're wearing ours, wherever you look is what you're going to hear in the directional mode. And so you have the ability to overcome and hear better and hear speech better in the presence of noise with certain products, but not all products. And so I think when you look at what your needs are and what situations you're going to be wearing the product in, you want to make it sure that it has features like directional microphones or like noise reduction or something else based on those environments that you're going to spend the time in where you need the most help. That's why it's a hearing aid. Like you said, it's not getting back to 20/20 vision. It's aiding you in the different environments to have speech be audible so that you have that clarity and understanding in the different environments. So most people don't have difficulty in quiet, right? That's not why people buy hearing aids. They have difficulty in noise. And so, when you're in that environment, at a restaurant, in a meeting, in multi-talker situation, in a social situation, you want to make sure that it's a product that you're going to feel comfortable and confident wearing, and that's going to perform in that environment. Whether you wear it, 12, 14 hours a day, or you wear it just in those meetings or in those environments.
Or on the phone. A lot of people have trouble on the phone. And that's why, iPods are popular because it has noise reduction. You can adjust it, with your phone, direct audio input. And, we live in a society now where everybody wants sound quality and clarity of sound. And we remember the old, sound systems that were just not clear. And look how we progressed into people wearing headphones and earbuds to get that sound quality. And I think that people who are developing hearing loss want the same thing. And they have all these situations where they want a better quality of sound.
It's like Katie said earlier. I mean, hearing's subjective, and we all like to listen to things a different way. We all grew up perhaps listening to different music, different styles. We learn to speak and listen differently in the environments that we grew up in. And so that subjective nature of how we like sound to sound is something that the adjustability is important in these products and having that ability to adjust them to your specific preferences.
And that sound quality is so important. And, I think that's why Sony and WS Audiology partnered together to make the Sony over-the-counter hearing aids. WS Audiology being a leading innovator in the hearing aid technology space and developing hearing aids for over 100 years, and Sony being a leader in the audio innovation space. When these two powerhouse brands partnered together, it really gives that distinct expertise to provide that premium sound quality with the latest in technology and innovation, and to make it packed in all this small, comfortable, modern design. It's really important that those consumers get that good sound quality. And it takes a while too, talking about realistic expectations, it takes a while to really retrain your brain how to listen again with hearing aids. Things sound really different right away. And, for our OTC consumers, I think, they don't always get the audiologist with them telling them what to expect. Your own voice will sound different. Shoes on the floor, dishes in the sink, water running, all of these things are very strange. And so even though they can wear them situationally, the more that they wear those hearing aids, the better their brain becomes accustomed to listening to that new sound and really retraining your brain how to hear.
Mm-hmm. Some people say that they're skeptical that over-the-counter hearing aids can really work for people. Do either of you have any success cases that you can point to and share, and the positive things that over-the-counter hearing aid products are bringing to people?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to that. I'm sure Katie can as well. But I mean, if you go through the process with the FDA and you're a self-fitting hearing aid, or you're substantially equivalent to a best practice prescriptive hearing aid in many cases, and so the consumer should feel 100% confident if it's a product that's been cleared by the FDA as far as self-fitting or in another aspect. Those products should provide 100% confidence to a consumer. And I've had numerous cases where people have been very successful with it and more satisfied with their over-the-counter product than they were with their experience when they went to see a professional.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, I can tell you from working in customer service, I talk to customers on the phone every single day, and I get to hear stories from them about how satisfied they are with our products. I've talked to customers who maybe they've tried other OTCs, or maybe they've had prescription hearing aids in the past. And, when they can tell me that Sony's OTC is the best sound quality and comfort that they've ever had, that just makes me so happy. As an audiologist, I 100% believe in this product, having worked with it for a year and a half now. And, that sound quality is so important too. HearAdvisor just rated the Sony E10 best overall and best in noise, which is incredible because we know how hard it is to hear in noise, especially when you have hearing loss and hearing aids. So, hearing that customers are happy and they're getting this premium sound quality at a price they can afford, I think it's just so crucial to making sure that people can hear better sooner. And I can't speak to enough about the effectiveness of our products and how happy people have been with them.
That's good to hear. And I think we would love to have other manufacturers on. And I think that Sony is having the benefit of the research and development from WS Audiology, a hearing aid manufacturer, come to the Sony product. And I think a lot of the other big manufacturers are also we're benefiting from their research and development when they're developing over-the-counter products. So we do welcome hearing from other manufacturers, and it's good to hear that. You mentioned prices. That's the other thing we get. People want to know how do the prices of over-the-counter hearing aids compare with prescription hearing aids? Now, we know with prescription hearing aids that in that price of the hearing aid are bundled, the good services of an audiologist or a hearing health specialist, and many people need that. So we don't want to diminish that, but maybe generally, could you talk in terms of over-the-counter prices versus prescription hearing aids?
Yeah, you want me to start, Katie?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to diminish the hearing healthcare professional, the audiologists, and those that are licensed, and the physicians obviously specialize in treatment of hearing disorders and hearing loss. Typically, somebody with a mild to moderate hearing loss is not going to require a prescriptive hearing aid, and that's why this rule was enacted. But their counseling, their service, their experience, and helping them through the acclimatization process is a huge part of the cost, in addition to the technology, which is not necessarily specific to mild to moderate hearing aids, and may have more capability than some of the products that are currently available in OTC. But prices in OTC in the private world are still averaging about $4,600 a pair out of pocket. And so in OTC, just like one of the initial slides that you put up during the introduction, you see prices from a couple $100s a pair all the way to $3,000 a pair. So there are products on the market that are just under what a prescriptive product would cost. And, most of them are averaging OTC around, $1,200 to $1,500 a pair. But that's for a pair of devices, and that's, for the consumer to self-care or fit themselves at home. Without the involvement of a professional. There might be support on the back end or post-purchase or pre-purchase, depending on the manufacturer, but the prices are definitely far less than in a private prescriptive world, but still it's for a certain hearing loss, not all hearing losses.
I agree with that. And, OTC prices are so different than prescription because, like you said, the audiologist is there managing that care with prescription hearing aids, where OTC is self-driven. And, that cost is reflective in the audiologist's time. And audiologists certainly add value to hearing healthcare. But what I think is really neat is that can include OTC. We're certainly seeing hybrid models too, where audiologists are involved in OTC. Not all audiologists will work with OTC. You would have to call your local clinic and ask if that's an option. And typically there will be a fee or service for their professional time. But audiologists, can certainly help manage OTC as well. Our products can't be programmed by an audiologist like a prescription hearing aid could. So an audiologist can't do adjustments more than the user could do themselves. Everything is managed through the app, but that doesn't mean an audiologist can't be involved in routine maintenance and cleaning, especially for customers who maybe have low vision or dexterity, trouble with batteries or cleaning. That can be such a big help. And, that audiologist is there to be that guided resource. But certainly, you don't have to have an audiologist to use OTC. And, that's where your price point becomes a little bit more affordable for some people because they don't have that service involved.
Thank you, Katie. And John, go ahead.
I'm just going to add, there's two sides of, the traditional clinic approach. One is diagnostics and one is then the products that they offer. And so, if a consumer is concerned, or there's a certain demographic of consumers that won't do an online test or an app-based test, they prefer to know before they buy a product, right, what their hearing loss and level are. Well, if you have Medicare or you have insurance coverage, you usually have a benefit for an annual exam. You can get that done by a medical professional or a licensed professional, and find out what your hearing loss is. Doesn't mean you need to buy anything from them. It just means you find out exactly where you are, and then you can make decisions as a consumer as to where and what you decide to purchase, whether that's at that clinic or at that audiology or ENT practice, or whether that's at Best Buy or Target or Walmart or online. And so there are options for you now that there never were before. And hearing loss is it's an evolving thing. It doesn't get better, right? If you have a hearing loss, it's not going to get better. And so my suggestion is, think about where you are in your life. I'm 55 years old. So if I have a hearing loss now and I live for another 30, 40 years, I'm going to need hearing aids every 2, 3, 4 years, right? So that expense over time is something that OTC allows to be affordable so that you have a hearing benefit and you hear the best you can over time, over the years. If I'm spending $5,000 a year for the next 25 years of my life, that's a lot of money put towards hearing aids that in the prescriptive world that now I can do in the OTC world for far less. So I think there's a trade-off, but you're going to graduate at some point to a prescriptive device. You're going to graduate to the need to have to go to an audiologist or provider in the future as your hearing loss progresses beyond the mild to moderate range. So this is just the starting point for those with mild to moderate hearing loss, and it's something that is safe and effective, and I think consumers should feel confident in that.
I think you're both speaking to a lot of the questions that are coming up in the question and answer about the use of an audiologist or hearing aid specialist and how this works together. And it's not an either or situation. So thank you. We have two specific questions in the question and answer box that I'd like to ask. And John, this one is for you. Somebody asks, are the glasses hearing aid combination, do they have Bluetooth in them? Or can you say at this point, because they're not on the market?
I know the answer, but I can't give it to you right now.
You can't give it to us. Okay, that's fine. You'll have to come back in a year.
And then you can guess. But you know, I can't give you the specifics of the product because it's not available in the US.
Okay, that's fair enough. There was another question from somebody that says, can the firmware in the over-the-counter products be adjusted?
Yes, it can be updated. Most products that have wireless capability have the ability to upgrade their firmware. So that's typically done in conjunction with an app. And there are many products on the market that do allow for firmware upgrades. So as improvements happen or communications needs happen between your product and your app, many times it's an automatic experience by the product, or sometimes it's an opt-in where you have to manually do it. But my experience is that most of them are capable.
Great questions we're getting today. Let's see, can you think of any other aspects that should be asked? You know, we're hearing from people that they're having trouble finding these over-the-counter products. And Katie, you mentioned Best Buy. If I walked into my local Best Buy, would I see these over-the-counter products? Or does it depend?
It does depend. Yeah. So, you know, some of our stores will carry them in store directly, and they can certainly be purchased online if your local store doesn't have them available. So, you know, Best Buy does carry them, but it is in select stores.
Where's a good place to start looking if somebody wanted to go start looking?
If they're going to start looking in store, you know, certainly Best Buy, possibly CVS could be a good place to start. But, you know, I would say the majority of hearing aids right now that are OTC are purchased online. And so, you know, you could also check with hearing care professionals locally. You could call local clinics and see if they carry them as well. You know, some audiologists will have them on hand too, or perhaps could even order them if they have an account too. So that's also an option, you know, where you don't have to necessarily just go to a store. You could call a local clinic and see if they're available there too.
Can you talk about return policies? Because we know when people work with a hearing healthcare professional, there's a trial period and they get to return them. What about over-the-counter products and return policies?
That's a great question. They will also have a return period, and that'll depend on the vendor that you purchase from. So each channel has their own individual return policy. If you purchase direct from Sony.com, for example, you have a 45-day return period. And that's where we really encourage people to call our customer service team if they have any questions or problems, really give them a good trial. You know, you have over a month to really figure out if this is right for you. And so I encourage people not to wait until that 45th day to put them in their ears. You know, when you get them, go ahead and trial them, wear them in as many environments as possible, and use some of those app features like fine tuning to really try and figure out what's best for you.
And that's the Sony product that has this good hearing aid return policy. Do all over-the-counter products have these return policies?
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment that you should know before you purchase what that return privilege is at either the retailer online or the manufacturer directly. And I would encourage you, like Katie did, to wear the product. If you have 45 days, wear it for 45 days, whether that's an hour to 10 hours a day. Experience the product, right? Because, you know, this is your time to really evaluate it and then find out if that's the right one for you. But, you know, some retailers have very short windows for return and others have quite long windows for return. So you just want to make sure that it's in line, there's no surprises, right? You want to have a good experience. And if it's not the right product for you, you want to have a good experience on your second try. But in many cases, if you make the right decision up front and you've gone through some of the pre-screening tools that are either that manufacturers or that retailers, you know, to narrow down what your needs might be, then I think that you should have a good experience, especially if you wear it every day during the trial.
And that's true with Sony.
Not really a trial, it's a return privilege.
Yeah, and that's true with Sony too. So depending, if you buy them from Amazon, you versus Sony.com versus Best Buy, you will have a different return period depending on that vendor. So it's really important that customers check and know what their time window is when they purchase.
We've got some great questions coming up in the chat. I've got three I want to get to. First of all, are OTC hearing aids effective for single-sided deafness?
Yeah, that would be one of those medical contraindications that's set by the FDA. And so, if you have hearing loss in just one ear, that is in audiology what we refer to as a medical red flag condition. And the FDA has clearly spelled out that they want you to see a physician, preferably one that specializes in the ear, like an ear, nose, and throat specialist, to make sure that you're getting the medical care that you need. And, depending on the degree of that hearing loss as well, if you have a more severe hearing loss in one ear, OTC is not going to be the best option for you. That would be something that would need to be managed by an audiologist or hearing care professional.
And the same thing, if you wake up one day and you've lost your hearing, a sudden hearing loss, you shouldn't run to get an over-the-counter product. You should really see a medical professional because something is going on, right?
Run to your medical
that. What'd you say, John?
You should run to a medical professional.
Run to a medical
professional. If you woke up with a sudden hearing loss or pain or anything like that, or drainage, I mean, it's on the labeling, but I mean, just like Katie said, that's a medical indication or contraindication to wearing an OTC hearing aid immediately, right? If you're cleared, and it's a mild to moderate hearing loss in that ear, and you have no other medical issues that's been determined by a professional, then it's an option for you perhaps, and that's something to discuss with that professional.
Sure. Another question I think is a great one because I'm a Costco shopper. Not that I'm endorsing them, but boy, they've got some great food items and televisions. And we know that many of them have hearing aid centers in there. And somebody says, we know they cover prescription hearing aids. Does Costco cover over-the-counter hearing aids? Do you know?
I'm not aware that they offer any OTC at this time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not aware of that either. Yeah.
That'd be great because, it's great to go in and get your milk and your bread and your TV and your hearing aids, right? Let's see. I think we have some other questions.
With a lot of bread, Barbara.
That's a lot of bread to eat. That's right. That's for sure. There's a question specific to Sony, Katie. Has Sony received online orders from outside the United States? For example, Canada, and are there any barriers in fulfilling those orders?
There is, yeah. So the OTC hearing aids that Sony has on the market are only FDA cleared for the US market. So currently the Sony OTC hearing aids are not sold in other countries, and other countries will all have their individual labeling and requirements for medical devices. And so far, Sony has only pursued the US market at this time. So it's not an option to ship them to Canada.
These are just great questions. And somebody also asked on the helpline, is the help only in English, or is there Spanish, or are there other languages available for people who don't speak English?
That's a very good question too. Our frontline agents, our tier 1 agents, all speak Spanish as well. So that's an option that's available if needed.
That's great. Well, we are coming very close to the time we have to wrap up. So I want you to make some closing comments or answer a question that you might get that we haven't addressed here. John, would you like to go first?
Yeah, we get the question all the time, when is the product going to be available? And so, we've introduced it, we've shown in some preview presentations, and most recently in our investor presentation on April 30th, we said it will be available. It's planned to be available in the United States by the end of 2024. And so later this year, we'll have more information. But if you want to learn more and you want to get on that update list and be kept apprised of our progress, then you can go to nuanceaudio.com, and there's an information page there. And there's a little button on the top right that says Get Updates. And you can sign up for that if you would like to get more information on the product.
Thank you. Katie?
Yeah, and thank you so much for hosting this, because education, as we know, is so crucial for individuals to make informed decisions about their hearing health care, whether it's prescription or OTC. It really starts with education. So I'm really thankful that you've had us here today. If people want to learn more about our products, they can certainly go to Sony.com, and we have an entire educational page. We have a video library on YouTube where they can learn more about our products, learn more about what might be right for them. And then, of course, schedule a one-on-one consultation with our sales team, call our customer service, or text, SMS, chat, whatever works best for you, to reach out and ask us any questions that you have about the products, because we're here to help you along the way as well.
It's great to hear from the manufacturers. This is our several in a series that we've had, and we've been able to have manufacturers on to answer these specific questions. So Kati and John, thank you very much. I'm going to pitch it back to Meredith, who is on our staff, our communications staff, who produces these webinars. And thank you to everybody. And Meredith, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you all so much. We really appreciate you being here. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We've had lots of great questions. We thank you for a terrific discussion, for our panelists for sharing your time, and for all of you for joining. We hope that this has been informative. And if you're not a candidate for OTC, we hope you share the information for somebody who may be. Thank you to our captioner who was live, Lisa Johnston. And thank you to all of you for joining us. Don't forget, we have another one, just like Barbara said, the last one in our HLAA OTC 101 Ask the Experts webinar is coming up on June 5th. We're featuring some more manufacturers. That time will be from Sonova and Jabra. So we hope you can join us. Registration is open now. So get your spot for that. We hope that you'll find this information helpful and share it with others. All of the resources that we shared today and videos of past OTC 101 webinars are available online at hearingloss.org/OTC. We also hope that you take some time and take and share our survey about over-the-counter hearing aids. This really helps us to know what's going on with all of you and what you're having trouble with, what you're confused about. You'll be getting a follow-up email too with more information and an opportunity to share feedback about this webinar and others. That'll come in another day or so. So thank you so much for supporting HLAA and supporting hearing health. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.